take a good product, and you can find that however you want. Callaway has plenty of data to support its goodness, if you will. Market presence, sales, dollar share, unit share. They've done exceptionally well in a lot of different categories. Products have tested well.
Sander share, ROM share.
ROM share, yeah, ROM share, etc. But they felt like, how do we take this product from where it's good to elite? What is up, everybody? How you living? No putts given. We are in this weird time of the year, Tony. I call it Tuesday and a half. Every day feels like some day, but no day feels like any specific day. It's like there's another world in between, Christmas, New Year's, this, that. So I don't know. I'm calling it Tuesday and a half. You good with that?
That's fine. It's relentless. Like, you just get up in the morning and do embargo-related things.
Yeah. It's the month of embargo madness. We're knee deep in it, and I guess to that end, maybe this is important to note. That's kind of what we're going to talk about all month long. Is whatever we can and are able to share with you on new products as they launch. We're going to have a variety of some episodes and things that we've pre-recorded that are going to come out at different times when we're able to sit down with key individuals from some of the major OEMs and kind of go through those products. But we don't want that to eliminate our opportunity to sit and kind of chat through some of these things, see what we like, don't like, hopes, dreams, all that kind of stuff. So that's just what we're going to do. Stay tuned. There's going to be a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. So looking at the calendar here, we've got, obviously, we're going to be talking Callaway today because they are the first to clear since Cobra, as far as like major stuff goes. Next week, we've got a little bit of Srixon and Cleveland stuff. TaylorMade, Mizuno, PXG stuff coming. Something interesting from Bushnell even.
Yep.
A little more of a couple more things from Callaway.
Hey.
The week after that, more Srixon, Titleist, Wilson, Ping, Odyssey, Vokey. And then we go into to PGA show week with some more smaller stuff, if you will, plus some larger stuff from Wilson. So yeah, this is
it's happening.
We are in it now.
We're in it now. If you're an equipment junkie, as many of us are, this is an awful lot like Christmas in January. It's like opening up a new present, a new gift.
Every year I just make an ass out of myself worse than usual too, because I'm like, oh, you know what? Like November 1st, I'm always like, it doesn't look too bad. I think it's going to be relatively quiet comparative. And now we are from, we started the count with Cobra last month to basically, into, let's call it February. We're about 50 different products we got to write about, give or take. So, whew.
And that's without Mizuno launching new metalwoods this year stuff. If that stays true, which it looks like it will, that's wild. So, yeah. So, yes, like I said, this is going to be largely a Callaway dedicated situation.
And
Elite
and that's 50 releases before we talk about what Titleist just did. So,
yeah,
that wasn't even on the list.
Let's start with that, because that popped up today. You and I both had an opportunity to see some of this part. We can't get into the embargoed information just yet, but we can talk about what we can talk about, which is the GT 280. What is this thing, Tony?
Yeah, very interesting. If you look kind of when it hit tour as a true prototype earlier, or I guess by the time this posts later, like early last year, mid-season-ish, it was kind of being billed as kind of a two-wood here. They're talking about it as a mini driver, and really I guess that's the most interesting thing about the category, is it really can be anything from a slightly oversized driver to just a little bit more than a slightly oversized fairway wood, slightly undersized driver, and that gives you just this huge range of I guess volume and size to play with. So, yeah.
So let's start with that by kind of setting some of the context. again, and we're going to come back to this, I think they're going to be, number one, there's going to be enough discrete models in this category now for us to test these, right? This year.
Yeah,
So that's what people
by
are
my
interested
rough
in.
count, like there's four. There's four that we know of that are coming, call it before the end of Q2, maybe even sooner. And just knowing, there are a couple of brands here that I would, or in the industry, I would kind of classify as Me Too copycat types, where
Sure.
enough people that do it, even if they don't necessarily have anything super interesting to add to the category, they'll make one too. So I think there'll be one or two of those, and then we'll just see. So it wouldn't shock me if we get to 6, 8 by year end, which is crazy considering that before last year when Callaway dropped their mini driver with a name so long I'm not even going to try and say it, there was just one for the better part of 5 years. So
we don't have enough time to. So, and again, kind of set the context. Like you said, this is part of what's interesting about this, and we'll see kind of where this one fits in is, a large fairway wood. So when we see a bigger fairway wood, we start to push that kind of 200 cc area. That, if you're in that neighborhood, plus or minus 200 cc's, that's a pretty big footprint for a fairway wood. On the other side, we know drivers can go up to 460 cc's. Sometimes we'll see slightly, smaller, low spin type models in that 440, 450 range.
430 wasn't that long ago. We
but
had 430s,
still, that gives us, so say 200 to 400 plus. That is a lot of volume.
Yeah, certainly no other metalwood where metalwood category we see necessarily that kind of range.
Right.
So it's
So I'm assuming the 280 indicates a volume size here. I'm guessing.
It's logical.
It's a reasonable thing.
Given what we know about how prices are trending, it is definitely not going to be the retail price.
We know that's not the price. Wouldn't it be interesting if they came up with a model name based on it?
Yeah.
You have to change it.
Yeah.
So let's assume this is that 280-ish kind of situation. We see it as the GT moniker. So we're going to assume a lot of things about some of the technology that it would follow suit with what we've talked about with GT, since, again, GT came out so long ago. It feels like, that is one downside to launching before everybody else does. Man, it feels like...
Yeah, you have a 6-month-old driver lineup that is still, by every measure, current, very...
Yeah.
It's just very good product, and it does feel a little bit like, how do you refresh this 6 months into the cycle?
Yeah, when the reality is, it wouldn't be any different of a product that they launched it in September or October. It still would be that. It's just that's
or January with everything else.
But anyway, so what can we tell about this? What are we kind of thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, not much we can say other than it's smaller than a driver and bigger than a fairway wood and probably 280 cc's. And I will say that we can see from the pictures, right? There is kind of that flippable front to back weighting, very similar to the GT4. So that kind of style, it makes sense in that small head. So I think the one shown was 13 degrees. And obviously some trajectory tuning from there. And again, right, sure fit hosel as well. So a lot of adjustability in this, or a reasonable amount.
Or the same amount as you would kind of expect based on the rest of the GT line. It's one of the biggest things that I'm going to be interested to see, like kind of as we get these and test them both individually and in a larger type situation, is not just the size of it, because that's one thing. So 280 is 280. You look at, okay, but how does that size actually play? Because, and I think you'll agree with this, but like, to me, part of the situation with any mini driver, if you will, is it has to be somewhat playable off the deck. Otherwise, if you're going to hit it 100% off the
I don't agree with you necessarily, right? I think that's part of the strategy. So if you look at what Callaway did, right? What is that? 350, I think. 350. Somewhere in the name. Probably actually have one back here. Hold on.
I think it was the 340.
Yeah,
I think it's... Oh, there you go.
TI3, Callaway Paradigm AI Smoke TI 340 mini driver. So this one...
It's a West Coast offense call.
Yeah, it's big, and I don't know that realistically
I
don't think anybody's hitting this off the deck. I think this is meant to be.
My point though is then okay, if you're never going to hit it off the deck, why not just get a second driver, make it shorter, and then get the benefit of the 460cc head or whatever. Something's going to be more.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's interesting where this is. I think how tour pros and how average golfers end up using a mini driver may differ. So for tour pros, right, it's going to be where you look, three wood use has declined on tour. So looking at the numbers, it's not a club that gets hit off the deck very often at all. It's typically when I need to hit something shorter than my driver. Not necessarily a control club. That's kind of one of those things that a lot of people think that doesn't hold true.
It's not really any more accurate than a driver. It's not, but I just don't want it to. I don't want it to go too far.
Right. I don't want to outkick my coverage. So that's kind of the use on tour, and then those guys have the distance to hit a 4-wood, 5-wood off the deck to kind of be that like maximum fairway wood. I think for average golfers, a lot of us like. That maximum distance off the deck, that is still a 3-wood. And so I think average golfers may need more versatility out of a mini driver than a tour player would. And the other piece of this, what I was alluding to before, is if you look at what's happened with drivers, progressively longer and longer and longer, right? So we've gone from when I started 45 and a quarter was pretty standard. We've crept up. We're 45.75 on paper, and that's typically like that's the cut length. You throw a grip on it, and now you're sneaking up on 46 real quick. Yeah. And for a lot of guys, that becomes very difficult to control, which is why Cobra has offered the tour length driver, right? A shorter version of the standard driver. And you can make the case like maybe that is the more compelling offering. But it does make sense to me that if you're going to knowing that most golfers aren't going to get fit or are going to get fit for stock and not change length, for example.
Sure.
If you're going to have that almost 46-inch driver as your mainstream, the alternative for somebody who needs to control, maybe the mini driver, that's where it fits, and you're not going to tell people like quite frankly we've probably made our drivers too long for you, so here's something shorter. But that for a lot of golfers, I think that's what it's going to be. And then the decision point is, do I want this head to be as big as I can get because I never plan to hit this off the deck? Is it a true 1-for-1 driver replacement, or does it become the 1-for-1 3-wood replacement, which is what I would want, where I'm like, I'm just trying to max out distance, and I still need to be able to hit this off the deck.
Dropping.
So
if you do,
absolutely fascinating category, and I can't wait to see how the different companies navigate it.
Yeah, me too. And that's one thing I'm going to watch is like, I can just see some people going, oh man, I love this mini driver. I hit it so good off the tee, da-da-da-da-da. And part of me is going to ask me, hey, are they really responding to the mini driver itself, or are they just responding to a shorter driver that it's like, oh, man, this thing at 42 and a half, 43, 43 and a half.
Yeah, so I got one in yesterday.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to talk about it yet.
I won't.
But I have no information on it yet. That piece of it hasn't come out. I got the club. It's 44 inches. So to me, I'm like, you could probably, even a mini, I'm thinking maybe 43 and a half even ideal.
Yeah.
But you think about it, 44 is measured, right? That is fully constructed. Yeah. Just a tick over 44. That's almost 2 inches shorter than your stock, 460 full driver.
At least an inch and a half shorter. So interesting. Well,
so let us know. I'd be curious. Are you interested in a mini driver? That's the first question, just broadly. And generally, what are you looking for? Is it,
what would you use it for?
Longer off the fairway, more control off the tee, a little bit of both? Let us know. I'm curious, and I know, certainly these are discussions they're being had in conference rooms all over the golf industry. So
I remember reading a book. This is 20 years ago now. You don't believe. I know. I got a book for my birthday. The
Playboy is not a book.
The Hamilton novel that the Broadway show is based on, and I was telling a buddy of mine, Kyle, about it, and he's like, "You read books?" I was like, "Yeah, I read books." Jeez, what do you think? Anyway, this book 20 some odd years ago was called Good to Great. It was a Jim Collins book.
Let's see what you're going. I see where this is headed. I feel
like
this was a segue.
There were some things in there, because that's kind of what Callaway's trying to do here with the Elyte line, which is take a good product, and you can find that however you want. Callaway has plenty of data to support its goodness, if you will. Market presence, sales, dollar share, unit share. They've done exceptionally well in a lot of different categories. Products have tested well.
Sander share, ROM share.
ROM share, yeah, ROM share, etc. But they felt like, how do we take this product from where it's good to elite?
Yeah.
So that's the two things we're going to talk about. Number one, what did they do? Oh, yep, there we go. Okay.
All right. Shifting the conversation. Oh,
it's an equal opportunity situation here.
What do you think? Can I pull off a rope hat?
Well, we'll let other people comment on that.
Austin, I'm more of a bucket hat guy, buddy.
You are.
Anyway.
If you'd return this call, it'd be easier. So if
fair,
what did they do? And then we're going to talk about, do we think they got there? So
yeah.
What did they do?
Well, let's start. Let's start first before we get into the specifics. I just want to talk about the size, scale, and scope of this release. So, before we dig into the details, we are talking about 4 iron models.
Yep.
So, 4 iron models.
Yep.
Am I correct? 3 hybrid models.
Yep.
4 fairway woods.
Really 4.5.
4 drivers, and as the guy who had to take pictures of all of this for the articles, I'm telling you, it's a lot. If nothing else, this is an extensive release. We can talk about whether they went from good to great or good to elite. They definitely went from good to a lot.
What did they do? Chiefly, what are they trying to do? What problem were they trying to solve? And how did they do that with the drivers? So take me through that.
It's kind of interesting, and this is one of those things where stories don't always, year over year kind of change and evolve, but Callaway will say, like, we've had a lot of fast drivers, but we've never really kind of had this fast and forgiving kind of combination. Mm-hmm. Even though they've talked about fast and forgiving for a while, like it's where you are at any given time.
Sure.
And so and I want to be clear, right? Forgiveness and MOI are not synonyms.
No.
That's
one of my goals.
MOI is a piece of forgiveness, but so we're not talking about pushing MOI, but we're talking about getting a driver that produces a ton of ball speed while also being forgiving. And for context, Callaway's forgiveness metric is really kind of the dispersion pattern, that ellipse. Like, if we have to have somebody come in and make us a blanket to throw over all of our shots, how big does that blanket have to be, right? How much fabric do we have to buy to get it done?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that was really kind of get really to this place of fast and forgiving, and where, the other thing they said is this idea of, like, felt, especially with kind of the mainstream, the standard model, that they had a really good driver, but it didn't necessarily kind of stand out in any particular way, right? It was kind of did a really good jack of all trades driver, but nothing that was like, whoa,
it was kind of like that B+ student in every class, but there weren't any exceptional elements or qualities they felt like they could really hang their hat on as being like the blank driver, other than the really good in a lot of areas driver.
Yeah, and I think, if you want to, I don't know that it's a problem, right? Because, again, these haven't been bad drivers, but if I kind of look at Callaway's lineup for the last several years, like that mainstream, the middle one, if you will.
The core model,
that's the one to me hasn't really stood out broadly. Like, we've seen some really good triple diamond stuff, even going back to Sub-Zero days, right? We've seen some great stuff there. The Paradigm X, which was, the draw bias model a couple years ago, like, was just, for us, that looked really good, tested really well. Even Max D tested well. So it's kind of the stuff that tends to be more towards the perimeter for all of Callaway's success.
I feel like specialty cases, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like that's where they've been at their absolute best. So that's, if they can get better in the middle, and that's not exactly the story they've told.
Drivers, I want to be the best where the most golfers are, right?
Yeah,
So what did they try to do to get here? What did they change up? What's this eliteness all about?
Yeah, and you can always point to, like, a handful of new technologies. So a couple things, aerodynamic improvements, right? Mm-hmm. Specifically, looking at kind of the CFD analysis, too much drag in the hosel area and too much drag on the trailing edge. And so there was a big effort to literally reshape the drivers, and you'll see, and we'll point to this maybe. Let's see if it's. I think it's a little more pronounced in the triples. Maybe let's see if
props.
it's. Here is this kind of where I did some work there to kind of bring that down, and then the other piece is on this trailing edge now sits a little bit higher. And we'll talk about the good and bad and how you mitigate that here briefly. Basically, metal jet printing of some kind. So printing titanium, right? Printing with titanium, similar to what Cobra does, right? You turn powder into full-on structures that are able to withstand impact and whatnot. And so what they were able to do with this,
hittable products, right?
Yes, exactly. And so being able to prototype, the story that what they told us is basically that allowed them, instead of being able to test 3 or 4 heads, because you're going back and forth with overseas, like something doesn't quite work, and so you say, all right, well, let's try this, let's get a new prototype, ship it back. They were able to test like 75 different prototypes. So on aerodynamics improvements alone, Callaway's saying they basically got 5+ years of improvement year over year from AI smoke to where they are now. So that's one piece of it. New crown material, they're calling thermoforged composite.
I feel like I've heard something like that before from another.
Yeah, so they describe it as similar but not identical to what Titleist is doing with PMP. And a lot of this stuff, kind of easy to digest thing is like, oh, weight savings, and then we were able to reallocate weight elsewhere, and yada yada yada. That's awesome, and that's to an extent what happened, right? You raise the tail section, that would typically have CG implications, but with the new material, they were able to save weight by replacing titanium with carbon fiber and then come out CG neutral, if not better. But the big thing is the process to make the material is more precise. And so basically your pieces fit together more tightly, more consistently. There's in this case, they're saying no sanding or grinding. So you're removing imperfections, and again, because you have these precision parts, you can be more aggressive in the shaping because you know how everything's going to come together.
Yeah.
So that's it. And then really the last piece of kind of your bullet point story is, here it is, right? It's important because it's right there.
Yeah, you do. It's on there. It's on there.
Trying to get the focus. So 10x AI face, which when they gave us the real math, is actually, believe it or not, a 16x AI face.
I know. I'm like, why'd you cheat yourself by 6x? What's the deal?
Golfers, consumers in general, like 10x, 10 times things. So, but what was really insightful for me is understanding, because it was like, we use AI for, it seems like forever we've been hearing about Callaway AI, and everything's been AI'd, and we're AI'd as fuck, and so that's awesome. But this was really the first time they really kind of talked about what AI actually does and how it works. And so the way you can think about it, if you were to throw a spider web or cargo net or any other lattice mesh pattern where everything intersects,
right,
is what Callaway considers a control point, right? It's an opportunity where you can use AI to specifically tune the performance of that little area of the face. And if memory serves, they were 1,500 control points.
Yeah, plus or minus.
With the previous generation, now they're up to 16x that, which is what, like 25,000? I don't know. Whatever the number is, it's a lot more. And so that gives you all of these little individual points on the face to tune, and ultimately kind of, I guess, as much as AI has been a speed story, Callaway's really talking about what the impact of these control points has on downrange dispersion.
Bingo.
And that brings us, right, we talk about, anybody's ever seen a launch monitor has seen like this elliptical distribution pattern, right, where you kind of run long and left and short and right, and kind of throw a circle around it, and you've got kind of a tilted
Most people's
pattern.
shot pattern will be, if they hit it dead straight, it goes there. If they pull it or if it goes left, it tends to be a little longer. And if it's short and right, a little spinny or whatever, it's a little shorter and righter. So you get this distribution that kind of goes from the middle to maybe a little longer and lefter to a little bit shorter and righter, and you kind of get this diagonal distribution plot.
Right.
But
and the story they told last year, right, was with the improvements last year with the AI faces, they took that pattern and kind of just, I guess, more like this. That's probably, just kind of made it a little bit tighter.
Yep.
hear what they're saying, and this is absolutely fascinating. I describe it as kind of like a folding of the pattern where the short ones kind of fold longer into the middle, and I guess the longer ones kind of fold a little shorter but into the middle, so you're getting more consistent. And it's so what you get is more of a level pattern. That's the best way to describe it. Instead of that kind of that tilted pattern we were just talking about, you get more of this level distribution that's also tighter than it's been. So for all the talk of ball speed and other companies and 10K and what forgiveness really means, what Callaway is saying is like, we think we're going to give you the tightest shot pattern on the market.
Yeah, and so I think that
I miss anything? Is that
no? I mean, I think that's the major stuff. I want to just key in on a couple things before we go into fairway woods because they're different in some regards in the driver. But this, like I said, and I agree with you. I call it AI fatigue, where like people have just heard so much. It almost becomes meaningless.
Right.
So to talk more about what it does as opposed to what it is, I think is the more salient topic for sure. And again, I think what Callaway's saying here, and we'll see if this proves out in testing and stuff, is it's not necessarily that we're going to make your long shots longer. That's not it. It's not this 10 yards, 15 yards. It's not this distance at all costs story. It's we're going to still maintain that. Your long shots are still going to be as long as allowable under the rules, but
the long ones that you like, right? Not the one that you hit the crap out of and ended up 30 yards OB, right? Like
but we're gonna get
good long.
Again, it's the two big shifts that I feel like we're hearing in the industry, and we'll see how this plays out because we're hearing it in different ways from a lot of companies. It's about your misses. Can we make your misses better? And part of that, to some degree, for some companies, is fitting. Fitting being a way to make your misses better. That fitting part isn't a big part of Callaway's story this year in terms of doing things differently in that regard. But
no, it's like we've got four heads and that's how we fit.
Yeah, we got four heads. They have their OptiFit hosel adapter again as they've had before.
Some changes to where your weights flip around and whatnot. But
yeah, and some kind of again minor aesthetic things and this and that, but. I guess my question is, before we jump into fairway woods and stuff, do you think, if Paradigm AI Smoke was good, is Elyte great? Does this stuff in here, is it enough of a jump that we're going to look back a year from now or after testing and go, oh, that was a jump. That was significant.
I don't know. Right, like because that's what we do this time of year. We go out and hit stuff, and we go, yeah, it feels that pretty good. That looks.
How much? But I think, bet?
It's just one of these things where like our experience with it is one range session at Callaway, and there's always kind of like some excitement and that comes with that. So, I don't have any strong feelings. I think it's an intriguing story, and I certainly appreciate that. We've moved past just going, well, we AI'd the hell out of it to actually talking about what that really means and what AI is actually doing. And again, micro deflections is what we talked about last year. Now we're talking about how the control points lead to those micro deflections and things like that. So, that piece is improved.
It's a different conversation for sure.
Yeah. And I certainly, like, when I hit them, nothing stood out as far as the feel was concerned. I'm like, it wasn't like this is amazing or this is awful, which tells me it's probably been improved. But, for me, the challenge is that I just loved AI Smoke so much. Like, that was, again, my favorite Callaway driver in memory. If I really thought about it, I might land on ever. So that challenge. So if I look, for example, like, going from... And I go, this isn't everybody. Like, I loved this, right?
Yeah, I love how that
this was a driver I love to look at. Looking at the Triple Diamond this year where they've, I think, probably tried to lean into the better player aesthetic. And some people are going to like this. Mm-hmm. The glossy black for me with the gloss, kind of the leading edge, and then the separation, right? Because they don't have that infinity crown look that Titleist and TaylorMade have. So seamless, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Even though they're never seamless, there's always a seam. But anyway, so that step back, I actually like this better than that.
Yeah, I like
this
seeing
is the standard
some of
pattern. So, but ultimately, it's going to come down to performance. And I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
that's probably the answer I'm going to give you on. I'll highlight some things I like every step of the way. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm intrigued,
Yeah,
and we'll
there's
see.
reason. It's kind of the same thing with the fairway woods. There's two reasons I'm really excited about the fairway woods, and one reason that I'm like, oh, I feel
I
like,
just grabbed one of every model, by the way. I'm not
oh,
going to be
perfect.
like,
Like I
oh, here we
stubbed
go.
my toe on the edge of my couch, and I'm just writhing in pain. I'll tell you what kind of made me feel that way about those in a second here. But the two things I'm excited about. Number one, Callaway made a point of this, that it's not matching luggage, that it's not, hey, we're just going to take what we did in the driver, water it down, put it in a fairway wood, and call it good. So to that end, the two things that they point out, one, you can kind of point to it on the bottom there, is this kind of tungsten speed wave. And you can see where it affixes to the sole there. And basically, the previous version of this, and again, it's a chunk of metal that I mean, oversimplifying, chunk of metal affixes to the bottom, and it's tungsten, so it's a heavier, denser metal. And what we're trying to do there, right, is pull the CG close to the face and low. That's what we're trying to do. That's good for
Without
ball.
inhibiting flex, right? There are other companies have similar technologies, so like Cobra Power Bridge springs to mind, right? You're all in that same general
spot.
concept, and it's
Yes.
like, all right, can we do it better, differently, whatever? So
Yep. So we want to get this weight forward and low, but we don't want to inhibit how the face flex and operates. And actually, Callaway believes that they've improved face flexure by also moving this a little bit forward. So previously it was like 14 grams, now we're like 35 grams. So you're more than doubling the amount of weight that you're
big
moving.
ass tungsten.
Big ass tungsten. And on a fairway wood, on these, they have the L cup face design, right? So the face itself isn't just this. It has a little lip, if
Little
you will,
lip.
that fits and affixes to the sole underneath, and it's welded to the body there. What they were able to do is to move the tungsten, the speed wave, in front of that weld line. So basically, if you're looking at the sole, you have the weld line, then you have the tungsten, then you have the face. Long story short, what it chiefly allows it to do is that face can flex more on kind of those low center shots, which is ding, 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 where most people impact a fairway wood, particularly when you're hitting it off the deck, right? Not many people are making center face contact or higher. It's really center face or lower. That's one reason I'm excited. But you might look at that and go, ooh, I've heard you guys talk about this before. When the CG gets that far forward, it's good for ball speed, but can really be nasty for forgiveness. I had one of those TaylorMade SLDRs, and I remember what happened when you missed it just a little bit,
Not
and
much
I couldn't
good.
hit it out of my shadow. Yeah. So when we asked Callaway about this, they're like, well, think about it like this. Hit it. Let's just go see what it actually does. MOI, forgiveness, there's numbers, there's things that we put on a piece of paper, and that's great. And they look great on a slide or on the screen or whatever. Ultimately, like I said, forgiveness, my definition of forgiveness is anything that gets me or helps me get the type of performance that I would get on a center face hit. So the closer I can get to that shot that's optimal, launch, spin, trajectory, did it, anything that helps me get closer to that result, to me, is forgiving. So what did they do here? Well, this is the second reason I'm excited. Glad you asked. It's a sole configuration, okay, what they're calling step sole. And again, this concept is not revolutionary, so I'm not going to give Callaway credit for, thinking about turf interaction in a fairway wood.
No, and this actually, they actually borrow this or carry it over from their UW, that utility wood.
Yeah.
So
this was a big learning from their utility
it's sort
wood.
of like, hey, that seems to work really well on this niche club that not a lot of people are familiar with. Why don't we put it into the main line?
Yeah. And if you want to think about it like having the correct grind on a wedge or any other club, what really allows you to get more center face anything, like I said, that helps me hit the thing more in the center where I want to is awesome. And so, again, step sole design is chiefly what's going to allow them to do that. All right. Those are two awesome things. I love that. In fact, they're saying, Callaway's testing says, we're getting more ball speed. We're getting better performance, basically. or equal performance, if not a little bit better, on thin shots on this new fairway wood than center face contact shots on the previous one. So your thin shot on this one should be as fast, if not faster, than your center face contact on the previous one.
Well, that's intriguing too, because I actually love the fairway woods last year. That whole AI smoke family just agreed with me. I
really good.
Carried the 5-wood for a long time, or all season really. Would have loved to keep the 3 in there, but there was no 13.5, and that's kind of my jam in that spot in the bag. So I almost texted Johnny Wonder to see if he could see if something might fall off the tour truck for me.
Tour truck.
Yeah. Think you dropped something, just send that my way. But anyway.
Yeah, so love that. Absolutely love that. But here's where I think they stubbed their toe.
Is it right there?
Mm-hmm. It's right there.
Yeah.
That's right where they stubbed their toe.
Yeah.
No adjustability past the 3-wood. And there's a 3HL, I get that. So there's a 3HL that's adjustable as well. But in the 5-wood, 7-wood space,
9-woods where they have them.
9-woods when they have them, there's no adjustability.
Because again, like this is to be clear, a complete lineup, just like the drivers. We've got a kind of, I describe it as kind of the big one, the regular one, the big one, the light one, and then the low spin one. So you're going to see kind of Elite X is the big one, Max Fast is the lightweight, and then of course Triple Diamond, and that's pretty consistent through the metalwood.
Pretty consistent throughout the family. So here's my thing with the adjustability is I get that in a lot of different, and you can even say like, well, geez, where should it stop? Your 4-iron, 5-iron, 7-iron. People don't adjust their 7-irons. They get fit for a loft and lie and they keep it. True. However, in those higher lofted fairway woods, I get that people may find an adjustment and then stay there, and they rarely tweak it from there. But, okay. But you only have one option.
Yeah, I mean,
Your option is the loft and lie that it's sent at.
Yeah, and I have, I carry right now, or 3 to 4, depending. I dropped the 4-wood and went back to the Callaway 5-wood, but at least 3 Titleist metal woods in the bag right now. GT stuff. That's where I ended the year. None of them in A1.
Yeah. Which is their stock setting, right?
And so it's like,
so
and certainly I would say, there's a case to be made that the fairway woods for me would be difficult to play in A1. So I want it.
You build to the spec, the volume thing. It's Callaway would say, hey, when you start putting adapters and things in that hosel area, there's only so much space inside the club. Things are competing for that space, like the tungsten soul wave, so I get that. But here's my other question or issue with that is I don't know a lot of people that go out and they're going to buy a 5-wood, 7-wood, whatever this year, and they're going to buy multiple models. They're probably going to be comparing Callaway, if that's in the consideration set, next to Titleist, TaylorMade, maybe Cobra. And all these other competing brands have adjustability. So if it's a tie...
I did the math. They have 32 fewer positions to put their fairway wood in than Cobra.
Cobra FF33. Yeah,
I did quick math on that.
Behind.
I didn't even have to open Excel, so I could be wrong on the numbers a little bit, but I came up with 32.
Yeah, so even, so there's a perception of, hey, if these other companies can figure out how to do that and still offer optimal performance, high-end performance, etc., why can't you do that? So I think that's going to be a challenge. I don't know how much it's going to impact sales and all those kind of things, but for me personally, as I'm reviewing them and seeing them, really, really intrigued by particularly a 3-wood and some of that, and really this titanium 3-wood. I don't know if you have one of the TI ones.
I don't
there, but there's going to be a titanium model that's basically the Triple Diamond performance package, but in a larger head shape. So this is going to be kind of that high launch, low spin bomber. I don't think it's available in a 13 degree though, because I think they're going to have something else potentially in there. I think it's going to be the 15 degree, but yeah, nevertheless.
And then, it gets really weird as we transition to hybrids, right? We have just a single loft of adjustable fairway woods, but then we do this.
giveth and taketh away. So it's almost like what they
the
were
hell
lacking with those is in on the hybrids. We have flippable weights,
Yeah, this
right? We
like
got
this
heel toe
is
weights.
this is becoming the year of the mini driver and the year of the hybrid, because it seems like everybody is sort of reinvesting in hybrid tech. But anyway, this is your
Yeah.
lane. Tell us about it.
Well, just I was going to say that it's so my level of disappointment in the lack of adjustability is offset by this excitement here. Going, oh my gosh! So you have flippable sole weights, which is really pretty cool, right? So you got heel and toe, and in the different models that kind of tells you different things. But basically, the heavy weight in the heel is neutral. People might look at that and say, "Oh, that's heel bias is going to be more fade bias, or sorry, more draw bias." It's not, and you have the OptiFit adapter. So now we can do loft and lie, which is awesome. The only thing I wish was here that isn't is a 2 model. Like
Yeah.
having something that's like a 16 or 17 degree to start.
And
The
I would
lower-
be very curious to see if Callaway, because again we have with hybrids 3 models, right?
yeah,
We got the standard one, the big one,
yep.
the higher launching one, if
And the
memory
light
serves, or excuse
Yep.
me, Max Fast. Yeah, the light one. Moved on to irons there for a second.
Yep.
What you don't have is the triple diamond, the little one in this case. So I'd be.
And you've
curious,
seen
like, what
companies
would
companies go one or two. Like we've seen some companies kind of get rid of that more kind of tour type, really iron like you remember like kind of the original Adams, like very square toe,
peanut kind of thing.
peanut looking, long iron replacement. On the other edge of the spectrum, like we mentioned like the Callaway, like the UW, that utility wood that kind of sat in between all these things, but a kind of larger, more of a fairway wood that really starts to kind of infringe on that. It's a big fairway wood or a big hybrid or a small fairway wood, kind of eke into that space. And some have just gotten rid of kind of that more tour looking one, or what would be like a triple diamond type of hybrid. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know
But
that
the
they sell
adjustability
many
back.
of them, but I'd love to see just kind of, hey, what would it look like? Yeah.
And for that reason, for me, I would go, hey, I'm going to see if I can get the hybrid kind of one, because I think I'm going to find something. I'm going to need things to really optimize performance that aren't whatever this one was, measured at and sent at, because it's going to be probably meat of the market.
Yeah, and Callaway's not the only one to offer this kind of versatility, but we hear so much, right? Golfers who avoid hybrids because they go left.
Right.
And so when you can launch something, a mid-size hybrid in the standard model, but it's true for all 3, where you can put weight in the toe, use the hosel adjustment to flatten it out if you need to, and really, have a few different levers to pull to take that strong left bias out, you're creating playability. And so I'm like, all right, that makes sense in a hybrid. Kind of makes sense in a fairway wood too. Just saying.
Stay tuned. All right, let's wrap this baby up. Just a quick word on irons here, because again, this is going to be kind of that chief. Again, it is a full family operation.
So again,
here.
so Elyte. Which one is this? I just grabbed the regular Elyte. So this is the standard one, kind of a.
Yep.
I don't know if it fits. I guess probably it's almost player's distance, game improvement, but it's not big. It's a really nice sized iron, I think. So you got Elyte. The Elite X is the bigger one. Elyte HL, which I had so much fun hitting. Like I really like. It's not for me, but just to kind of just hit an iron and just watch it go. And this is also Elyte Max Fast. I'll touch on real quick, right? The lighter weight one, but this high launch one. This is the one that's intriguing to me because again, we've talked about this, years of testing with regular golfers. We see that it's a struggle for golfers of really not just slower swing speed guys, but kind of across the board almost to hit the ball high enough to achieve the height and descent angles that fall into the optimal range for your swing speed. And so when you can hit an iron where, even though, for example, the pitching wedge is 43 degrees and the 7-iron is 30 degrees, who cares?
Right.
Don't even think about that, because when I hit these, it was just
number
like,
on a page.
Ball up, ball down, and it was just kind of effortless height. And I'm like, yeah, this is the one that has the potential to help a lot of golfers. So nothing negative to say. I think the finish looks pretty good. The badge will be, some people love it, some people won't care, but these are plated. They are reasonably priced. What are we talking about? $1,000 for?
I want to say it was for, I mean,
there is some voodoo in kind of what the set makeup is to claim that $9.99
Most people are
price
ordering
point,
a 3-iron and 4-iron that are buying.
But yeah, the HL, like I said, super fun to hit, especially if you struggle for height. That one's going to be really intriguing. My only kind of struggle with this is trying to figure out where everything fits. Going back years ago, when I really kind of first started, like back in the Diablo days. That's rough frame of reference, where Callaway had, it seemed like 100 irons, right? We're starting to get to that point again where you've got 4 Elyte and the Apex is 4 or 5 models now. And again, it makes sense from a fitting standpoint to have that many kind of options to pull from. So it's hard to hate the idea of it, but at the same time, man, it's a lot. And so for me, I'm like, this Elyte, for example, is not radically different from a standard Apex.
Right, that's
little different construction, maybe. Little different. The under the hood bells and whistles stuff is probably a little different, but I think, for a lot of golfers, you're going to be hard pressed to find significant performance differences. So, maybe too much, but again, if fitters are happy with it, why not?
The two things I'll say on that real quick. One, in addition to what you said there, my biggest pro for this line was the feel. I thought for this category of iron, particularly the standard Elyte, in a game improvement model, I was like, typically you'll maybe hollow or kind of hot feeling, kind of electric. These actually felt really, really good. I've hit a lot of game improvement irons that were purportedly, forged iron feel or this or that, where it just left me going like, oh.
And I think that was on the range at the Performance Center. I think that was probably the first thing I said to you.
Yeah, I was like,
these feel really good.
These feel really good.
And at the Performance Center, you're hitting Chrome Tour X, so you're not hitting like low compression. It's not like Callaway's fitting with Super Soft, because
you're not hitting a ball that's designed to make you feel artificially good about impact or anything like that. But to your point on the number of models, and it cuts both ways, where it's like, on one hand, I get it. More choices inherently feel like that's a good thing. When I walk down the deodorant aisle at the grocery store, there's no shortage of choices. There are 842,000 different types of deodorant. I get that. On the other hand,
I smell like a waterfall.
Don't go chasing them, though. If I look and go, okay, that feels overwhelming to me, that's probably not a great thing. And from a cost perspective, it costs more to have more discrete models. Right, Mizuno ran into that problem. Do you remember the old SC? And when they had the blade in the SC, I think these were the MP18s. When you talk to Mizuno internally, they're like, well, they're actually pretty much the same iron. They kind of, if they were a Venn diagram, they were more like a circle.
It's like, it's like a blurry circle.
It was like a blur. Yeah, exactly. And so I wonder if we were to do that with all the Callaway models, and we said, hey, how many could you actually eliminate without really reducing choice? I wouldn't be surprised if we could eliminate a couple models without harming the consumer selection process, I don't know.
It's a lot. The whole lineup's a lot, but I think, big picture, when we talk about trends in the industry, this is the year of mini drivers. This is the year of, you're going to hear more fitting stories and semi-proprietary approaches to fitting than ever before. And that was, again, kind of almost surprised that Callaway didn't have one of those this year. Mm-hmm. And then it really is just product volume. We're going to give you a lot to choose from.
Yeah. There'll be no shortage of options this year at all on any level. So, and like I said, we're going to have a lot more coming at you the rest of this month. There's going to be, like I said, a bunch of episodes, special things. I know we didn't do a deep dive on every piece of everything from this line, because this would be a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast if we did. So as you have questions, let us know. Find us, follow us on the interwebs, hit us up with your thoughts, hopes, dreams.
I want to know which you guys like better.
Tony wants to know that.
Like this black on black, or this beautiful
let us
carbon
know.
composite on this gray that is just magnificent.
We out.